Good morning, everyone. We are pleased to have you here with us today. I'm Anton Sayalan, Chief Evangelist for Luminary Learning Solutions, and I will be the voice of the webinar this morning. Welcome to the Reset and Go webinar series, designed with the anticipation of getting everyone back on track in terms of mindset. Setting the right precedent is important, and with this series, let it be said that this is our disclaimer. We're not here to discuss the obvious. We're not here to dissect the impact. We are here, however, to contemplate the way forward. This is the basis of 5 down and 7 more. Before we commence our webinar, a couple of house rules for everyone. For those of you who are joining in for the first time, if you do wish to ask a question, please use the chat option at any point during the session. Similar questions will be clubbed together. And the format that we're looking at this morning is a webinar of 40 minutes of discussion followed by 20 minutes of Q&A. And there will be a summary to aid those joining this webinar at various points. The topic for the session this morning is keeping employees engaged during the crisis, a case study from around the world. Perhaps one of the most persisting challenges today is trying to push gently for performance while maintaining the morale amongst your teams. And this is a crucial skill that managers today are expected to acquire and acquire fast. Today, we are looking at case studies and analyzing the skills that will help us effectively engage our teams and navigate through these unsettling days. Throughout the 5 sessions last week, we have spoken about challenges of working from home, how to make working from home productive. We have also spoken about engaging and motivating teams once we get back to normalcy. What we are looking at today, or what we are hoping to offer, is a collage of examples of how to engage and motivate during a crisis. We hope this will offer you some ideas to work with, that you can take this back to your organizations, to your teams. Our guest this, and it is my pleasure to welcome Darshan Seneviratne, Manager Talent Management at MAS Linea Aqua, Tushari Pereira, Director Human Resource, AIA Insurance Lanka, Upulka Samarakon, Head of Human Resources, Hemas Holdings. Unfortunately, Sarath Kumar, Executive Director, Human Resources Administration for Camps Lodestar, due to unavoidable circumstances, may not be able to join us this morning. And our host is none other than Varun Chandra Mohan, a trainer with Luminary Learning Solutions and an assistant manager at Human Resource with Cloud Solutions International. And as always, the silent observer, Vidhu Shenatkarana, founder and destiny architect of Hi-Fi Consultancy and Luminary Learning Solutions. Having said that, Varun, over to you.
Right. Thank you very much, Anton. A very good morning to everyone. We are on our 6th episode of the webinar series Reset and Go by Luminary Learning Solutions. Throughout our conversations last week, we kept bumping into a few recurring themes, one of them being employee engagement. You can have the best processes and initiatives in the world, but if you can't get the employees buy-in and if you can't get them engaged, you're only going to get us so far as an organization. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. How can we keep employees engaged during this crisis? Joining us today is our wonderful co-host, the one and only Vidusha, and our 4 panelists who've gone on to do some amazing work in the areas of employee engagement. Tushari, Upulka, and Darshana, good morning and thank you for joining us. All right, let's dive straight in. Let's talk about the last 4 to 6 weeks. Generally speaking, what were some of the mistakes you've noticed organizations make in terms of employee engagement, both locally and internationally? What lessons can we take away from them? Tushari, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah. Uh, Good morning, everyone. Thanks for inviting us to join this uh, webinar. If I go straight to your question uh, about mistakes organizations we do, one thing is, first of all, we need to understand the situation is totally different from what we have operated when it comes to local context 1 month before. Um, People go to office, they contact with each other, they do gather, they have meetings, they say hi to whenever they meet, they talk, small chit chat in the lift or in the corridors. But when it comes to this 1 month's time, I think it's more than 40 days, this lockdown period, we are at indoors, it's with family. Um, so at the initial stage, it's kind of a very uncertain situation. We didn't have like, even for the essentials, people, actually we are very worried about even for food and essential stuff. We are not sure about getting it, right? And also when it comes to businesses, all business management teams, leaders, they also worry about how it goes. So during this uncertain time, people to connecting people and get into normal BAU work. It was big kind of an hassle. So during that time, due to uncertainties, some I think first mistake I noticed people try to connect with employees the normal way. So they thought the maybe things we can do it in normal way, but it's something that we couldn't do. So we have to, there's a transition period from normal environment to virtual environment. So that is one thing we need to understand. And other thing is, so there are a lot of foundation need to be done. So even though we say, okay, we can work from home, that was a norm. People love to work from home. If you ask 1 month back, so I think Upul Kardashian, they can they are the organizations also, people request us to give that option many times to work from home. But when it comes to this kind of situation, um, it's like it's very difficult. But actually, we as leaders sometimes we didn't know whether we have the correct foundation or structure, infrastructure, whether it's laid down properly. So those are the uncertainty and uh, getting the foundation done. We noticed some mistakes we have done during that kind of situation.
Sure.
Yeah. So Varun, I believe like as Tushar said, we are trying to create engagement program during this period also without engaging our own employees. So that is one of the mistake that we can do because things has changed, right? They talk about new norms, right? And if we connect like as HR people, like HR job is really different. Why I mean that is like I was into technical previously. We were supposed to drive the business excellence and business KPIs. We need to HR. We have three arms, either three direction. It's a 3D model. There's a leadership one end, and there's an employee at the one end, and there's a business at the other end. And this moment of time, engaging with people not only to show them that we care and we share our experience, it's about assurance the business because just after this pandemic they might be thinking about job security, so they need to feel about that their organization taking right strategies to cope up with stand with this turbulence. So this moment of time engagement is really different. And also we need to listen to our leadership and what is needed. Actually, I talked to our leadership and what they mention is they said business is moving, right? If I talk to my colleagues at the organization, if I ask from them, did you have your morning meeting as usual? Yes, we are having morning meeting. And did you talk to your suppliers? Yeah, we are talking to them daily basis. Did you talk to your customers? Yes, we are hanging with them and understanding the new platform and the strategical change that we need to take on. What is the missing piece? So as HR, we need to understand to bridge that gap of the missing piece. For us, we understood the missing piece is actually it's after a little bit mistake that we are trying to create some engagement program. We understand the missing piece is they miss the quality time with their colleagues. You know, like if we had the morning meeting at 9:30, usually before the COVID-19, we might walk into the room 9:25 and we're on our way to the meeting room, we might have a chit chat and someone might say like my daughter did something like this, then there will be a aha moment in others person to do something differently. And there's during the lunchtime we having lunch together and someone will say like, would you like to taste my homegrown kangkung meldo? And then the other person might be thinking, oh, okay, it's a good idea to have homegrown vegetables. So they miss this chat. And the other gap which we understood is with this new norm, they say like people are engaged with business day to day, but some are living in, some has gone to hometown, there's a less accessibility to data, and someone living in an apartment might be second floor, so their entire lifestyle has been changed. Can you do something on that? So to answer your question is the biggest mistake that we can do is creating engagement program in a traditional way, not listening to your employees, business leaders, and not connecting the business strategy which coming into the new norm. Those are the three mistakes that we can do if you listen to your own employee. So you engage them to create engagement. That is the success of real engagement in this digital.
I'd just like to add something on the topic of the challenges that we as HR folks are facing and we as organizations are facing. I think it goes down to the heart of the challenges that employees are facing today. Because if you really look at our employees, we are all sort of facing what is generally called an unprecedented situation. And I think that's the perfect word for describing it, because we as a human race has not been through this sort of a widespread situation. But of course, you can talk of things like the Spanish flu, etc. But those were called by those names possibly because they were sort of predominantly in a certain part of the world. But here is a true pandemic today that we are facing. So along with that comes all these challenges, like, you know, if you really look at a very model that many of us are very familiar with, if you look at something like Maslow's model, without exception, I think most people's concern has sort of moved to those bottom rungs of physiological needs, of safety needs, of staying safe from the virus, of staying safe from loss of income, of sort of engaging with each other at a very human level. If you really look at engagement, at the heart of it, it's a psychological, very human construct. So when the reality of the people around us change, that really does go into that as one of the inputs that we really need to look at. So with that in mind, I think one of the challenges is also how do we sort of balance like Darshana said, the different aspects that we have to balance. So for example, to me, I think keeping employees engaged during this time, I would crystallize it with two concepts. One is care, the other is communication. When I say care, I don't essentially mean only caring for people. What I mean is exercising due care with whatever decisions we make, be it a business decision, be it a sort of a decision that can sort of be not quite popular among employees that we do for various reasons. In whatever it is that we do, I think as managers, as business people, we need to exercise due care. That is one part of it. And the other piece, I think, is with regard to communication. By communication, I mean not just the one-way messaging, you know, the CEO sending out a message, but also getting feedback from the employees in terms of what are their realities, and also translating whatever we do into tangible action at the hands of the employee. So to me, those two things, care and communication, are challenges as well as how we can actually address this.
Very, very, very true. Did organizations get anything right though at this point in time? Anything you've observed where they've got it right? Certain initiatives.
If I may go first,
Yeah,
I think
go for it.
organizations are getting a fair bit of things right in what is a very challenging environment. Organizations are pivoting. And I think it's also key to admit the fact that none of us have the answer. We don't have the secret sauce. We are
Sure.
sort of
Yeah,
putting different bits of ingredients and seeing what works.
absolutely.
Sometimes so many cooks that it kind of does go wrong a little bit. But we come back, we recalibrate, we move fast. I think that is what most organizations are doing, and you're seeing an unprecedented level of agility. If this crisis is unprecedented, I think we are also seeing an unprecedented level of agility, of innovation, of initiative from people,
Yeah.
a lot of heart in business. I think those are the things that organizations are getting right at this point. On a very concrete level, I think things like, I mean, if I were to just quote from a few things that we've done at Hemas, I think one thing that we got right is very early on, we reached out to employees. Most of our HR teams actually ran in-person calls to individuals to make sure that they're doing okay, that they have the necessary contacts, they need have the necessary, produce to keep going. Although we couldn't sort of meet all of those requirements, the fact that there was someone listening, that the organization
Right.
cares, I think reassured people. So listening to people, in both sort of in both directions, I think is really important. And those are some of the things that organizations have done well. And both locally and overseas, I have seen people sort of doing things like water cooler chats, to Darshana's point about how some of the human interactions have kind of got
Right.
lost. Organizations are intentionally creating those opportunities whereby they set up, let's say, calls for people to just have a chit chat, not official
Yeah.
things. So I think those are some of the things that organizations are doing right.
Quite
Yeah.
nice.
So Varun, I believe,
Yeah.
so my experience, like in addition to what Tupulka mentioned, those are spot on, and I believe faster decision making, which I experienced just after 15th of March, like 2 weeks or 1 week of the pandemic, once it announced as a pandemic by the World Health Organization. So they took very aggressive action on this, right? And most of the Sri Lankan organization, like they look into this matter in a global way. Like they have connect with their customers, they have connect with the supplier. They always they given the trust on international regulation, and also with the government regulation, and also they show some faster decision making. What are things that we need to done? Okay, we need to shut down operations and we need to take care of our employee. That is our biggest assets. I have seen like decisions are making very aggressively and very speed way. That is number one. Number two, I believe agility. Like we were talking about working from home, and actually the organization which I work in is only like we have the freedom of flexi hours, and there are some myths about flexi hours and how to use these things and all. So I believe this new norm, or sort of just after this pandemic is stand out, and once we start working from home, so the agility has gone up. Everyone connect through the Microsoft Teams. We had those technical platform. To
Yeah.
be frank, myself, I use MS Teams frequently with my own team. I would say it's very, very rare, right?
Right.
Because we had that engagement. But within a week, within 2, 3 days, I have seen like all the organization which my friends, my colleagues also talking about different technical platform which we have not seen. Yes, and the other aspect of about it is communication. So nowadays we need to depend on the communication, not traditional way of SMS and organization communication mail, right? So one thing we have done correctly is connect the communication channel to people's lifestyle. Like today's lifestyle, our lifestyle, we hang on WhatsApp, our friends and social groups, and our family, and all the even the government communication and social media communication is people are largely depend on those stuff rather than TV channel and radio stations, news channel. So I believe that communication through WhatsApp, platform like WhatsApp, because when we connect with through a communication channel which close to people lifestyle, that
Yeah.
communication making very rapid and speed, and also the picture format of communication. It's a simple exercise that we can do.
Yeah.
If you post a text message on your social media and same text message on picture format on same social media, you can see how many people react differently, right? People read pictures nowadays. So I believe that's something our organization has done correctly. They were communicating all the aspects to picture format, which really works. So three things I believe which really works is fast decision making by leadership, agility to technical platform, and the right communication channel which link with the people lifestyle.
That's fantastic, Darshana. Thank you for that insight. Before we move into our next section, for those of you who are just joining us, we are in conversation with Tushari, Pulka, Darshana on keeping employees engaged during this crisis. Our panelists were talking about what some of the organizations got wrong, what they got right, and what we can take away from all of this. And we've been seeing a lot of recurring themes throughout the conversations, like care, communication, technology, open communication channels, agility, innovation, and so forth. There's been some fantastic insights being shared. My next question, or rather area that I would like to dive into, is going into 2020. I'm sure most of your organizations would have had some sort of an employee engagement plan, whether it's events or other initiatives, in one form or another. When we went into lockdown, what impact did that have on your existing plans? How did you adapt? And if you could share some examples and give us some insights on that.
Yeah, Varun. May I go first?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yes. Actually, we have when we started 2020, we have our engagement calendar. But actually, when it comes to AIA, our engagement calendar is not kind of an event-based calendar. How we approach to our employee engagement is more like we try to identify their needs, and then we just want to address those needs. This concept came from Gallup engagement survey, because annually we conduct a Gallup engagement survey, and from there they try to address 12 human needs when they come to work. And it is kind of a need-based approach we normally carry out. And when it comes, these are the things that it's, as Upurka said, as Darshana said, it's like whenever we do employee engagement, it's more like caring aspects. We see their whether we can listen to them and we get their feedback, and also first of all we try to manage their basic needs. That's their basic needs, and then we'll go to their individual needs. So as an individual, they as employees, as us, we always like recognition. We always want ourselves developed. And team environment also, we want to listen, we want to hear ourselves. So those are the very basic things. So at each and every level, we try to deliver these needs when it comes to our engagement calendar. And also when it comes to employees' well-being, it includes mental and physical well-being also. I'm just giving you an example. So when it comes to mental well-being, we do conduct employees like meditation program, so just for their stress releasing. And also when it comes to physical, we are at our office we have CrossFit sessions and all these things, little things, and we give awareness about good food habits, hygienic conditions, all these comes. And then what happens during this time, what we have done is, okay, so when you go to office, we interact with the people and we deliver all these things. Here what we have done is, for an example, it is physical well-being. You're at home and again you need to do some physical, for an example, physical exercise and all that. So our CrossFit section, normally we had it in our rooftop, but we actually do it in online. So people connect early in the morning and they do their CrossFit sessions. And also when it comes to meditation kind of programs, we have conduct mindfulness sessions. So then people connect. and they do listen, and they got some insights. And also, if I can give you a few more examples, like people love to do events. When they are in office, we do have management town halls, we do have focus group discussions. We continue those things. Only difference is virtual. We have our management team meeting online, and we do have focus group discussion. Especially, it's very important that HR connect to each and every people, cross-functional. Maybe it's cross-functional, maybe it's very functional specific. Small group discussions. And then we try to understand what are their challenges and how we could support them. So those everything happens online. That's the difference. Yeah. So those are few examples how we have initiated our engagement calendar.
Yeah, I would like to talk about one particular engagement event which we have conducted on eBase. Other than what Tushari mentioned, like we were most of the organization were able to convert their day-to-day engagement activity like yoga, aerobics, and other stuff into e-version. So one thing really worked for us is Aurudu season, right? So we connect about Aurudu season and we create a Aurudu festival totally online through a close Facebook group. And that was conducted by our own colleagues, which we identify from department. Over there, I would like to mention one thing, right? 5 to 10 years back, we were talking about millennials will be at work. It's a hot topic, right? Trending topic. But just after that, are we talking about millennials are in the work, right? What are they doing, right? And are we optimizing their talent? Right. So one thing we did during this outdoor season, we identify like energetic, like young, enthusiastic talent, and who's willing to commit and who really engage with us. And they form a circle of the friend circle, and they create outdoor season. Like I have been into industry more than 15 years. Trust me, like camaraderie, tug of war is the game what everyone cheering, like.
Yeah.
In normal circumstance, we might be able to facilitate 2-3 teams, right? Maximum about 40-50 people. But this time, camaraderie, it's almost 450 participants, right? They were in the either side. It is totally on the e-platform, and Vissanagaha and Kanamuttiya, right? And we had Audu Kumara, very interesting those 2 days. And just after that, even because we have created the platform we created, I just want to a little bit talk about the platform. We create the organization into 3 segments and create WhatsApp group for the communication purpose, like customer interface, which is product development and merchandising into one team, and supportive department into one team, and operation team to other. Through those groups, we did the communication, and I have seen even more senior leadership, that is the engagement level of our organization in every level. Like they were talking about like this team is going to win on tug of war, like why don't you vote this time? And that has been really worked. Actually, I was thinking about, did we use technical platform? Did we engage with millennials? Did we optimize, not actually millennials, now alpha generation on in the platform? Have we given them the freedom to create our engagement formula? Is it HR responsibility? Actually, we just facilitate the chat, and they did everything themselves, and it was very creative flyers going here and there, and it's totally those 2 days. Since we were locked down and at home, like very limited number of people we associate, everyone was hang up with that social media, and they were really engaging. So one thing really work is engagement calendar. Actually, it won't do any changes rather than giving more benefit, I believe. So it's a matter of us to understand who are our catalyst of this engagement formula, and who are our change agent, and tap them and connect with them and let them give them the freedom, because they talk about engagement in their point of view. Though we were trying to get into their shoes, it's pretty hard being in the different department, right? So that's something really work at my organization. And as Tushar is saying, I said, we were continuously doing the e-version of engagement activity, which we have very good feedback that's going throughout the this season.
That's some fantastic insights. And just to carry on with your point, I mean, it's I'm truly Excited to see how technology is being embraced in all of this. Zoom has been around for 7 years. Microsoft Teams for about 2 to 3 years, and it's funny how we are absolutely taking advantage of these wonderful technologies only now, and we could have done this back then. So thank you, Darshana, for that insight. I have an interesting question that I would like to put forward, and it might put our panelists on the spot a little bit. Now, you were fortunate to be a part of organizations that had some sort of an engagement plan going into 2020. What advice would you give for organizations that didn't quite have these plans in place, but they badly need their employees to come together at this juncture? Is there anything they can do at this point to create that engagement when they didn't have any of those plans, or those plans weren't effective before? Any quick advice you can give them as to what they can do now?
Yeah, so I believe first thing is like never try to learn from some other engagement program. Yes, you need to get some insight truly, and you need to connect with your people because they are very really diversified. And someone would like to read books, someone would like to aerobics, someone would like to do yoga, someone would like to go to gym. And
Sure.
this diversity which we need to understand, and how can we understand this diversity? That's the question we need to answer first of all. So we need to connect from them well before the creating engagement formula or engagement program or calendar, just to understand what is the diversification. And we need to make that multi-sense, multi-generation, multi-dimension. We need to address all those aspects. It's not too different event, but during the same event we can address those things if we really listen to them, and also making them a part of this program itself. Like rather we create something and announce it like on 27th of April this will be coming, on Vesak this is what you need to do. So they will decide, they will discuss, they will engage. So my advice is make sure that diversify talent, diversify people, diversify ethnics, diversify, those things need to be identified first most before you create the engagement program. That is one advice I would like to give always.
Varun, before answering your question, let me also share one experience because
Sure.
Since Darshana shared Aurudu last Friday, also we also conducted our Aurudu digital Aurudu survey, and it was kind of one successful event. Maybe I was thinking it is like, even though when we had all these all previous years we had this Aurudu flavor, Aurudu Krida and all these, but still the participation, number of participations, the enthusiasm, engagement is like maximum. People, because of this situation, they miss this Aurudu flavor, and when you have this kind of a digital Aurudu festival, and also people can enjoy, and not only our employees, even their families enjoyed, their kids, they participated, and we had like kind of online voting for the Kumari and Kumaria. It's kind of, I really understand what Darshana says. What we can do is, even though maybe we have engagement calendar, or we may not have engagement calendar, but only things what you have to do is understand the situation and try to come up with some initiatives.
Right.
It's kind of a very important thing at this time. And also to answer your question, before having all these kind of, it's good to have those engaging people having these fun activities. But first of all, we as employers, as organizations, we need to understand employees, they have very basic needs. So it's about getting their pay on time, make sure their benefits are paid, because they are kind of in an uncertain situation. So we have to maintain that BAU part also. So if they work remotely, how do we connect them? Whether they have connectivity, whether we have equipped them to connect, and also about working from home. It's kind of a new concept when it comes to local environment. So whether we have given correct guidelines, whether we have given correct tips for them to adhere to this work from home concept. because our whole family is at home and our kids, because then there's kind of a real life, real time work life balance. How do we manage that? So yeah, as HR, what we can do is, one thing is, if you are now our kids all at home, so how do we occupy these kids for something else? They also can engage with their family members. So those are the things that we need to cater. And also when it comes to your training, we normally, when we are at office, we have L&D calendar. We do conduct trainings. So how do you manage online? So maybe it's like when you go into a classroom, maybe previously we conduct with 30, 40 people. But when it comes to online, sometimes it's a small group discussions, small group learning and development sessions, short time periods. Those are the things that we can facilitate from HR's point of view.
Thank you, Tushari, for that, and thank you for touching on the aspect of engaging employees when they have children. I was recently reading an article that said that companies like Genpact and Deloitte, they were rolling out initiatives aimed at keeping children engaged and occupied for a few hours while their parents work. In fact, there were some fantastic examples. Like some of these organizations have organized virtual summer camps for children to enroll in and take part in. Some organizations are having classes on coding for young children so that they can pick up some useful skills during this time. So that's thank you for touching on that.
Yeah, Varun, just to share with you, we conduct kids arts and craft competitions. We are planning to have stories telling hour for kids. Little things, not a big kind of things, but it's important for kids to occupy during this time while doing their work, studies also.
Absolutely. We just received a question from one of our audience, and this is a bit of an interesting one. So they've asked, most of these activities and engagement activities are based online. How would you roll this out for those employees who may not have access to connectivity as, let's say, the rest? How would you address that, and how can you? What advice would you give?
If I may just address that point, I think, see, then you have to kind of also go into the heart of what keeps employees engaged. Yes, these activities like, the things that build camaraderie are very important. And then how do you sort of translate that to people who are not on tech, not sort of connected to the degree that you and I are connected today using Microsoft Teams, etc. So one way is to see how can you translate those into the platforms that are actually available to them. Like, for example, like Darshana said, many people today are on platforms like WhatsApp. So these little challenges that you roll out on WhatsApp and things like that are one way to keep that camaraderie and the fun aspect going. But one thing I'd also like to emphasize is that employee engagement, what you see as those activities would be really the tip of the iceberg. That's the icing on the cake. And then it goes down into the heart of what keeps employees engaged at a time like this is also how an organization really looks at their needs, their challenges, and how responsive are we to those, and how real are we when it comes to addressing those. Because sometimes I don't think any of our organizations that are represented here actually make that mistake, but some organizations can sort of look at engagement as those fun things that we do, the parties, the picnics, the activities, so to speak. But engagement really goes into the heart of, like some of my colleagues on panel already mentioned, what is important to the employee. So I think for people who are not connected like that, some of them might actually be reporting into work, because at HEMAS we do have a fair number of employees who are connected with the essential services, therefore they do report to work.
Sure.
So keeping them engaged is a different ballgame. So for example, what we do is we point out, as Sri Lanka's largest healthcare company, the national duty that we are fulfilling at this point and how they're such a vital part of it. So that for that category, sometimes we have to look at engagement in a different way. So for that sort of employee, what we have been doing, and then also I think the response to that is quite sort of really encouraging, because we've had amazing initiatives coming through from our factory floors. You may have seen on the news how our Atlas company really created a robot to help medical professionals sort of treat patients whilst keeping the required distance, and so therefore by keeping themselves safe. And in other organizations also, for example, hand sanitizer is not a product that we carried in our portfolio, but very quickly teams sort of rallied around and created that product. Hemas hospitals have gone into very quick innovations, like, for example, virtual consultations, delivering medicine. So all those actually came up through the employees. And that's a result of them feeling engaged through the sense of pride at serving a larger national cause. So I think for people who are not able to connect virtually, how we can sort of keep their engagement going is by sort of going back into the purpose of our businesses. Why do we exist? How do we support all of us as a nation, as a world, to sort of come out of this crisis, and the part that we have to play?
Yeah, it's a very good point, Upulka. Like, I also want to add a few points on the same topic. The real engagement for a person is, if I'm an employee, obviously being into HR. If I do not have any sense about the business, how the business is going on, what are the new strategy, as Upulka mentioned very correctly, and if I miss that pillar, right, having this yoga or how those, it's like having those is good, but the most engagement is business engagement. Unless you feel that you are part of this journey, part of facing this crisis together, which we have lots of example across many organizations. We can see those stuff like how they contribute this crisis as a nation. So that feel people proud, really proud. So that's what we were trying to mention. Like, the most engagement is business engagement. Are you taking a part of the business meeting? Are you talking to your customers? Have you engaged with them? That is the real engagement, because we need to feel that we foresee beyond this impact, right? Just after pandemic, what would be the world in terms of business sense? Because we engage with employer to create a relationship employer. So we are driving towards the particular task. But number one engagement, obviously, it is about business, having right business update, which we have done in the right way. And secondly, we can think about the real the missing gap, which I mentioned earlier. What are the things that they missed, and what are the things that we can support them to heal them mentally and physically well-being? To answer you, Varun, about people who doesn't have access, right, who has gone to hometown, right, and it's a tough game, like, without data, but it's very rare in Sri Lanka even now that we cannot access someone, like either SMS. We do have their phone numbers, giving a call, like department managers, like talking to their own members, because we have a nice structure. Like, if we take 6,000 employee organization, if we wonder how we can communicate, but it's not a 6,000 employee organization. We have a structure in place. Like, I do have my subordinate, I do have my boss, and what I really see, like, I do have my neighbors, which we talk in the with the social distance with many other representing many other organizations. They are really connected. They say, like, my boss is having a call with us, like, to understand our lifestyle. Even I got call from my CEO even. So that makes the difference. He talk about the business and he asks about my family. Across MEs, all the CEO has spoken to their next level of employee, and it has been cascaded down. Pulka, thank you for mentioning that it's all about keeping our employee engaged with business strategy, and also their mental and physical well-being. That's the whole point of our engagement formula and the events.
Yeah, to add on, like as Upuka said, and Darshana said, ours is a bit different to your environment, because we are compared to your number of headcount, ours is less. We have, like, when it comes to employees, it's around 800 employees. In fact, we didn't honestly plan to go on for work from home concept like 100%, but the foundation was laid, because maybe there are a few advantages we had, because we are a multinational company and our home office is at Hong Kong. And before coming this COVID situation, we really got few tips and what was happening in that area, like Hong Kong, China, how they have reacted. So then our foundation was laid. All functional heads, divisions, they tested their BCP plans and whether the connectivity issues. They actually during January, February, we have been kind of actually we sorted out many of those issues. So the lockdown period came actually the connectivity issue actually we had that the whole thing was challenging, but still since we have laid the foundation, it was a bit easier for us to manage it. For an example, the entire workforce, they are on laptops. So it's like at any given time, they can connect from home. So those are the things that I think we have few plus points. And again, we change our business plan, new business processes we have put in place. So then it's very important for employees and even our backbone. It's our agents. They are the one who bring businesses, and 90% business came through our insurance agents. So have you ever seen insurance agents talking to online for a business? They always meet their customer and then only they talk. But we have converted that whole scenario during a very few days into a totally different environment. It's virtual business conversation, and then how to close a business kind of thing. So this whole thing, even though a business process is in place, that we have to do a lot of back-end work to train them and make sure that we deliver. How do they connect with those our customers? So for an example, during last 30 days, our sales training division, they reached to like 5,000 participants online, and 300 sessions were conducted, training sessions. It's like kind of, I would say, one thing that we made it very effectively. Those are online training, and those are the business needs arrive because of these COVID situations. So if we can, as Upul Gandashan said, first of all, we need to address business need, how we can connect employees for those business needs.
Thank you, Tushari. Fantastic insight, and thank you for the contribution from all the panelists. Once again, before we move into our next section, for those of you who are just joining us, we're in conversation with Tushari, Upulka, and Darshan on keeping employees engaged during this crisis. And we've covered some fantastic grounds about keeping employees engaged, what kind of initiatives have been done, how engagement plans, which were originally set at the start of 2020, and how organizations are adapting once the lockdown kicked in, and also we were talking about how we can not only keep employees engaged and how to keep employees who may not have access to online connectivity or the tools that we use on a day-to-day basis. How do we keep them engaged as well? So some fantastic insights being shared over the past several minutes. We've had a lot of questions coming in with regards to trust. So I'm going to try and club them all together. So all these audience questions are revolving around why is it that only during a crisis that organizations rush to create engagement or come up with activities like this. There were even some questions asking, are there any motives, or can we trust the organizations when they do these engagement activities? And most importantly, will they continue to do them afterwards, after the lockdown, after the curfew is lifted, or when we go back to work, or is this something that's just being done for the moment? Any thoughts on that?
I think organization. Sorry, after you, Tushari.
No, go on. Sorry.
Okay, so I think to answer the question as to why organizations are thinking a lot about engagement at this point in time, I think it also has to do with the fact that we are all going through really uncharted waters. Organizations are conscious of the fact that these are difficult times for people and organizations. So I think that is at the heart of what might seem sometimes like over communication from the point of view of the organization. And organizations do this quite intentionally because, like I think we previously also discussed, the context sometimes is missing when you all work from home or remotely working. Because when you're sort of physically interacting with people, physically going to a workplace, there's a lot of context that we derive from what's happening around us. To quote this often quoted statistic about communication, it's a 7% is what comes out of the words, 38% from the vocal variants, and 55% comes out of the non-verbal. So I think we all derive a lot of context from the work situation. And when that is missing, organizations try to overcompensate by communicating more and not less. And even in terms of these activities that are done, I think it's also an effort from the point of view of the organization. It's an acknowledgement that we are all in hard times, that we are all struggling emotionally, physically, psychologically, sometimes financially. So organizations are trying to see how do we sort of support employees from all these different angles. So to some extent, organizations and particularly HR functions, whilst carrying the business as usual operational aspects, whilst keeping those live, I think a lot of attention, a lot of bandwidth is really being focused into this area to, like I said, to exercise due care towards our employees so that together we can come out of this stronger.
Yeah, thank you. Tushari, you had some thoughts on.
Yes, very true. As Upulka said, this context is different. So because of that, many organizations, actually all organizations, they try to connect with people, and the caring aspect is more important. As Upulka said, at office environment, we miss some of the activities, some of the interactions we had as employees. So how could we compensate that when it comes to work environment at home? So that's the main thing, is the communication. That's why maybe HR or HR facilitates a lot of communication among employees, cross-functional groups. So that communication is the key thing to engage employees. And doing different activities and connecting with employees it's a must, because that part is missing during this period, because people are at home alone. They don't have that colleagues interactions and all that. How do we create, even though we may not be able to create the same environment, but again, we have to create some sort of a similar environment for them to comfortably work. That's what organizations do during this time.
Yeah, well said, Upulka and Tushari. Just to add my thought, what we found with this situation is real synergy of employee and organization strategy. So we have not finalized business strategy. We are working on business strategies, leaders working on it, and then second layer, tactical layer, execution layer, everyone working on towards that. But there is a piece of that coming up, like real engagement. Like we had days like there are so many business work because demand is really high, right? And when we try to do engagement, can we have 100% participant? Obviously no, and we are not expecting as HR people. So now we have come to a new norm, but that this will be not the real new norm, as Dave Ulrich said during the first session. So we are expecting to see some sort of a different platform very soon once we go back to office. So that's the question, Varun, that you raised also. Like what will happen, how HR will tackle this thing, and how they will continue this furthermore. So I believe we found the real secret of it, and we can crack the case. A good example I would like to say, we work remotely, like our plant located in Hangwell, like with the 4 years back, actually 3 years back, we initiated a program known as Expert Chat, where we felt like people can't associate, if you work in Colombo, you can go to the club or somewhere in the evening, have a chat with business leads, and there are so many things happening around the Colombo business forum, business updates and everything. So with the leadership of my own, with an idea of, we start inviting people and share their experience. Lots of expertise came into those discussions. So this is the first time that we conduct the same chat online. Believe me, the participant rate is more than 4-5 times the usual. So what does it say? Like, we used to come back to Colombo and Gampa, like major cities, just after work. What would be the best time to have these program? Like, we do have Toastmaster program in our organization. We were thinking about how our participant can get maximum benefit. We were thinking about office time and, like, a physical engagement, but we realize it's not all about people need that support. Earlier days that HR felt like we create this program, our budget is like this. Does people really get in benefit? Sometimes some people ask question, right? It's not people doesn't want, people want it, they like it, they want to learn, they want to explore, they want to break their barrier, they want to inspire with some other expertise, but all about balancing that. So I believe we can help our employee with this new norm, yet come into new norm, which we can predict slowly. Sure. With the time goes, and no worries, this will continue, and HR folks is, I believe, ready to keep it up.
Absolutely, spot on. I believe we just have a few minutes left, so I have one last question to ask our panelists. What would be your biggest learning or during this time? What can you carry through, like to the time afterwards? Like what can you take from this? The biggest lesson that you've learned that you're going to be taking forward. Who likes to go first?
Yeah, so for me, it's very easy. Like I would say, touching the employee heart, create engagement through employees itself. Yes, we are into HR, but we are not the program creators. We might be coordinate. Let them to employees to talk. Let them to create their program and enjoy the program and getting benefits. So we are going to touch their heart from their own arm, and we catalyst and back. We are going to support it. And so we need to make sure that they are part of this formula, and they are the person who create this sacred formula. That is my real takeaway during this time. They make it happen, and we just facilitate it. And they are doing it fantastically. We need to listen to them.
Sure, nicely said. Upulka, Tushari.
Well, for me, I think it would be around the fact that, yes, these are huge challenges that none of us possibly anticipated to face in our lifetimes. But here we are. And I think without exception, for the most part, organizations and individuals are stepping up. So to me, that is like a very sort of reassuring and very inspiring kind of message that I'm taking away from all this. Yes, life will throw all these curveballs at us, but I think together, collectively, we are coming out of this and possibly stronger, just as much as the 30-year war that we've gone through as Sri Lankans made us resilient to whatever life may throw at us. I think as humankind, I think we are learning things. And I think how organizations face this time will leave a mark in the heart that will basically define our employer brand for years to come, because you can do many things, but if you sort of don't do it with the right intentions, don't sort of carry out the right sort of connections at this time, that will harm our employer brand in the long term. And on the reverse side, what we do at this time, if we get it right, and I think most organizations are doing tremendous things. And even if hard decisions have to be taken, I think most organizations are going about it in a very responsible way. So that is my takeaway, that people and all of us are capable of amazing things, and this adversity is really, like they say, tea leaves have to be put into hot water for the tea to be brewed. I think we are all in hot water and we are brewing an amazing cup of tea.
Oh, that's nicely said.
Yes, totally agree with Darshan and also Upulka. It's like we learned many lessons during 1 month's time, and also it's what I learned. My most important session is that people can change. People can adapt to a changing situation very fast. And we all organizations, we are our companies, we are now back in track and we are batting on. So this is not because of HR folks, because of our team efforts, because of our employees. They came up with initiatives, they came up with new business processes. They are the one who proposed, I don't know the timing about fast tracking them and getting it done. That everything happens through employees. They are it's kind of a entire teamwork, and also it's about engagement. At the end of the day, that's called engagement. So if people engage to an organization, they are kind of happy employees, and final results is they do better performance and deliver results. So it's kind of a win-win situation. That's my learning.
Thank you, Tushari. Again, spot on. With that said, I'm afraid we are out of time, and we come to a close of today's session on keeping employees engaged during the crisis. It's been an amazing hour, and we've learned so much. And most importantly, we've learned about how organizations are figuring it out as we go, and they are all doing their best. And in the words of Dave Ulrich, who said, the best is yet to come. So it's definitely not all gloom and doom at this point. And I think another takeaway from this session is that nobody can underestimate the human potential. We are quite resilient. We will persevere, and we should not underestimate our potential, or even someone else's potential and our ability. So here's to optimizing them in the future. With that said, thank you so much to our panelists, Tushari, Upulka, and Darshana. Thank you for being with us here today. It's been a pleasure. And a special thank you goes out to Vidusha, Anton, Tatum, Mahesha, the Luminary team, and to our audience who tuned in today. I'm your host, Varun Chandra. Thank you for joining us. Over to you, Anton.
Thank you, Varun. Thank you, Darshana, Tushari, and Upulka for that insight. Unfortunately, Sarath Kumara couldn't join us owing to urgent work demands. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us, and I hope this session was enjoyable and informative. Tarun, for a fantastic job in guiding this conversation, an exciting one at that. In times of uncertainty, we all find ourselves trying valiantly to adapt to the changes which come our way when facing a pandemic. And as we heard, the truth is mental resources are stretched. Now more than ever, organizations and individuals need to engage in forming an engaged support system, and that everyone is relying heavily on their leaders to set the norm. This is where skills will be tested. This is where you can forge a connection that matters. After all, anyone can lead engagement when the going is according to plan. But only the best can lead engagement when plans fall apart. And we've heard literally a collage of examples this morning. And I hope this webinar offered you some insight that each and every one of you can draw from, adapt to, enrich your own engagement, and take away this toolkit. On that note, you've tuned in to the 6th of the 12 topic lineup. And before we move into tomorrow's, a quick thank you to our technology partners, H1, who've made these webinar series an absolute possibility for us. We have seen seamless sessions, and we really thank the team working behind the scenes. Tomorrow, we will be looking at re-establishing trust and confidence and motivating under trying circumstances and the leadership challenges after COVID. Our panels featuring David Ray, Director Manufacturing at Next Sourcing Limited, Ashika Gunasena, CEO Chrysalis, Sri Lanka, and Nalin Pereira, CEO Mobitel. Remember to log in at 9 a.m. tomorrow, the 28th of April. A quick reminder to everyone that video footages for all our sessions, including this one, will be up on our YouTube channel and our social media feeds shortly. So if you do have friends and family who may benefit from this, who have missed out, do feel free to share. Good morning. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day. Stay safe. Stay productive.